What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Hollywood Already Did It presents Buddies for Life, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a mini series where we go episode by episode with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as look back on buddy cop movies of various decades, how the genre's evolved, what has made it last, why it has lasted, and how Falcon and the Winter Soldier elevates it both for the MCU and candidly overall. Of course, I am your host, Blake Schultz. With me today is Terrence Tatum
Hello, everyone.
and Jamie Jurok.
Hello.
And we are here, guys. We've been spoiled by Disney Plus. We have had 3 months seemingly of weekly shows between this and WandaVision with a small break. And we are now done. We've made it to the finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There are shields and outfits and uniforms galore and deep and interesting themes and candidly some of the coolest action I've ever seen in a show. When he pops that shield off and whips it at that helicopter, my God. So, guys, let's get into this. What did you think? We'll start with Jamie because Terrence is muted.
I thought it was great. Overall, I would say that this show is not my favorite thing Marvel's ever done, but I will forever be impressed with the way that they told Sam's story and that they went to places that I never expected the MCU to go. And I'm excited for Cap 4. I'm excited that they led into that. I think overall it was a fun experience. There was a lot of good stuff. In the end, they really dropped the ball on Sharon Carter once again. I could give a shit about her being the power broker. I want to care. I think that the seeds are there, but they're not. They have not blossomed yet. But I thought the finale was good. There were a lot of fun moments. My biggest complaint is that the ending. Why not make it Captain America and the White Wolf? He said like 8 times he wasn't the Winter Soldier anymore. If you're going to change the title, do it full all the way.
For both.
Yeah, but I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I was surprised that Walker didn't fight them. He was just showed up, helped, and then on his way. I didn't hate that. I was just surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean that was a part that bothered me. There's a lot of stuff that I don't think this ending landed quite perfectly. The Walker part being one of them. Where I was like, hey, he's just after decapitating someone and beating and fighting you guys to what would have been the death. You guys are like, cool, come help us out. The Sharon Carter of it all, we sort of spoke on. Didn't really dig that either. The Carly send off and climax didn't really work for me either. It felt sort of anticlimactic for all of that. But all of that being said, what really really did work was Sam, and seeing Sam in that Cap outfit. It still just think about it gives me goosebumps. Like I was like, oh, this feels right. This feels good, and it felt earned. I think that's what this series as a whole was trying to really do, was say, hey, Cap gave him the shield. He didn't think he deserved it, and this shows why he did. And that's what this whole point was. And I think if that is all that we're taking away from this, then I think it nails that and does it in droves. His monologue at the end in front of the cops feels a little bit on the nose, but I didn't care. I think some of that might be because of the week that we've had with the Floyd verdict and all of that stuff. I was like, nope, go for it, Sam. Have a field day with this. So all of that worked, and I think that seeing the name change and knowing that we're getting a Captain America 4 with a black lead just made my week. I was like, yeah, I can't wait for all of this.
I think I thoroughly agree with everything everyone has said. I quite enjoyed the episode despite many of its flaws. Like I said, some of that action, some of that cinematography was just so on point and so great. When his entrance and he lands, and this was probably the first time that I've ever just looked at a costume and been like, yeah, that's it. That's the
Nailed
comic.
it.
That is a 1-to-1. You did it. There's no, we didn't do any, we changed nothing. We changed nothing. It's incredible. I loved that. I loved seeing his fighting style. It almost reminded me of how they talk about Spider-Man in the comics of, well, he's got all these angles and the webs and people don't really know where he's coming from or what he's doing. And when he's flipping with those wings and tripping people with them and using them as a brace when he blocks Carly was so cool. I was like, we're getting so creative with the way that he moves and fights and functions and the shield popping out and him grabbing it and the way him thinking out these situations of finding the pilot and getting that guy out of the helicopter and trying to talk Carly down again, all great. All shows why he's Captain America. I feel like they didn't do anybody else's arc though. I feel like John Walker, I liked seeing the soldier that we had heard about. You know, when we started this show, it was he's a good soldier. He makes the right call. People believe in him, and we really only saw him be an asshole and make the wrong call and get corrupted and not be worthy of the shield and suck overall. And I last week was like, well, we put him in an impossible situation to become the next Captain America. It's a lot. So I see the frustration in people not respecting it, but respect is earned. And when he does try to help those civilians, I was like, great. I like seeing that there is good here. Right. Now, how redeemable is this? That's a much bigger conversation that we're not going to do here because, you know, Iron Man flew over borders, popped out a gun and iced 4 people in the face to save some civilians in Iron Man 1. Everybody has killed or hung up people or done something that I'm like, right. We let that go. Loki's killed half of New York and we're like, he's going to have a show. So like, I don't know what we consider redeemable anymore. I don't know if John Walker is or if he won't be, but I love the complexity of the character. And with each episode, I feel like we're getting more and more into something we've never seen in the MCU. And even contradicting that with Sam as Captain America, which is also something else we've never seen in the MCU and infinitely more important to today's conversations and culture and our society in general of like what this means. Him giving this big speech at the end was incredible. But yeah, we did almost nothing with Sharon. She stood around a lot. She's the power broker. I'm with Jamie. Make me care about it.
Right. Now, it was so anticlimactic.
If she is going to be the power broker and doing some stuff with the U.S. government, and maybe this leads into armor wars, and she's talking with Justin Hammer, and she has to go up against Rhodey next, just sign me up.
Justin Hammer, I'd love to see some Sam Rockwell come back.
Yeah. You get her doing some deals with Sam Rockwell, and you get Rhodey to show up. I'm in. If that's where we're going next, I am there. Lead that into Ironheart. I'm in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt also with some of the politics we had been talking about, you know, we killed Carly only to kind of have Sam be like, she was right about everything. Just her mannerisms were wrong. And I was like, but hold on. Like,
yeah. And he went on this, like, you labeled her as a terrorist. And I'm like, I see your point because they do sometimes put those labels on. It's like, oh, these people are thugs. These people are terrorists. Sam, by the very definition, she was a terrorist.
You've been working with Zemo. He killed a lot of people. Like, we have labels for reasons sometimes. Like there was some kind of contradictory stuff. And I felt like, and maybe I'm wrong, I have no real evidence. I feel like you could feel COVID reshoots because when they get underground, suddenly everyone's just like running in their own tunnel and very far away from each other.
I am of the belief that about 30 minutes to maybe an entire episode is missing or reworked because either COVID reshoots or not being able to get them, or also being like it feels like the storyline might have started leaning into some things that would have been a one-to-one what's happening in the real world, and they're like, nope, gotta yank that out because we do not want to upset anybody right now. So
I heard that there was like a pandemic thing that maybe was originally in there.
Yeah, and so I think that's why some of this stuff probably just feels a little disjointed with the way they stuck the landing. One of the big things we didn't really talk about, Bucky's ending either. I feel like if we go from the entire first episode where we're almost giving half the episode to Sam and half the episode to Bucky, and we're doing the whole thing with the Asian father, and we all knew it was like, yeah, we know this, you killed his son, so you just got to tell him. For us to get that at literally the coda of this episode, and then we just pull away from it, and you're like, oh well, that I feel like we should sit in that more or like do a little bit more with that instead of like, here we go.
And we do a lot with Bucky's story too, where, you know, they tell him to stay away from Wakanda, but they still call him the White Wolf. We don't really know what like the White Wolf means for Wakanda as a title. And so, like, I think Jamie's right. We could have done a little bit more with that idea and then really changed the name, but I don't even know where this character really is. Like, he's happy and he's healed and he's working on himself and he's raising up 2 kids with his metal arm at the end. It's a fun time.
And he's getting some Sam's sister.
I mean, I'll tell you, Sam's sister.
He's getting some Sam. I'm sorry. That the sister's a red herring. He's fucking Sam on the side, and that is a fact.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about
Hey,
it.
let's do it.
I'll tell you though, her business is about to blow up. You
Right.
want to come to Captain America's boating restaurant? Y'all are gonna be fine.
Yeah, you guys will be quite all right.
A bank loan. Uh, so then we get a movie. This is great. Our 14th slated Marvel feature.
I feel like they just keep slating them like, look, we don't even have space. Just put it in there somewhere. We'll find
Is-
time.
Are we concerned that in a movie form, it's going to be a lot more just like Captain America saves the day, and we're not going to get quite into these heavy themes? Do we even need the heavy themes, or
I
do we
feel like
just want to go watch him save the day?
It's weird because this is going to be one of the first times, and it seems like this is going to be happening more and more the way that they're doing things. But this is one of the first times where we're going from TV, like we're going to movie, going to TV, and then going.
Terrence, I agree with you. Really, only George Clooney managed to make the jump from television to movie star. I don't know that Anthony Mackie can.
I don't
do
think
it.
Mackie can do it. But then going back to film again, off of the story that we got there, and I think because the mediums are very different, I think you can get a little bit more into the heavier stuff or the headier stuff on Disney Plus. But when we get into those big old Marvel films, those are what we call 4 quadrants, and you're doing every single audience member, and you don't want to piss off a great deal of the audience if you start talking about only black people shit.
But I think, though, correct me if I'm wrong, because I am white and I am now pulling a Zemo. What we want to see more of are stories of black people just being superheroes.
I think so. Like, yeah, that's what I want. I think a lot of the black trauma or black trauma porn that we get with like them or even though I liked it, Queen and Slim, like where we're like, can you tell a story where we're just doing some normal people shit, or in the case of this, let's do some superhero shit where we're not really having to watch us be the suffering part. I think that is a part of it, and I hope that the rest of the world and the audiences, I feel like Marvel audiences is probably the least toxic of all the geek fandoms, and I feel like they're a lot more accepting of just like, all right, whoever's here, we're with it. Black Panther did well. It seems like there seems to be a good response overall for Shang-Chi. So I don't think this audience is going to have an issue with that overall.
I mean, Black Panther made more money in the U.S. than Avengers Endgame did.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think we're there. It's interesting because I had that thought where I was like, man, we're doing a lot of challenging themes in this. And in a movie, it is more like big bombastic story. It's about the character. And then I was like, well, maybe that's what we want to do now.
Yeah, I think you do the legwork or the groundwork of building this character and getting to know this character on the TV series, and then when we get into the event film, we're just like, all right, let's just go do a mission.
Well, and I was thinking about some people saying that they don't do a lot with these themes at the end. We don't do a lot more with systemic racism. We could have done. I'm like, well, the reason we don't really do more is because we, as a world, as a country, as individuals, we don't have those answers yet. So of course Marvel couldn't answer it.
Right.
Of course Marvel was unable to be like, and this is how we end it, because we haven't done it.
Right.
It is building awareness. It is having these tougher conversations of the villain had a point. I know what they're going through. You got to start listening to the people, and you got to start putting the people that your decisions affect in the room when you're making the decisions. That's the stuff where I'm like, we did everything that we needed to do with the themes. That's exactly what we're saying in Hollywood right now. If you want to make these stories impactful, get the people in the rooms to tell the stories for the people you're telling them to.
Yeah.
You stupid executives. And that's how Blake never worked in Hollywood again. So that was the finale. I think we all feel overall good. I think we can continue this story in a movie. I would like another season. Is it too much to get another season and a movie?
Can we get both?
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. I really wish that they would have been like, we're getting another season, but the fact that the Emmys, they're submitting to the Emmys as drama, whereas WandaVision's submitting as limited series, so it's still possible.
I mean, they could just very easily be like, it is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we're passing the Falcon torch over as well, and Sam's story will be in the movie, and now Bucky
will get
the new Falcon will do this.
That's true.
That'd be great. Who knows? Only time will tell. But what time will not tell us is that was a terrible transition into this. It's time to talk about our 2 buddy cop movies for this week. We are once again bringing a double feature for, I guess, the 2010s, 2 of the most recent and perfectly fine movies, I guess. I not particularly challenging. We have 2013's The Heat with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy, not to be confused with Heat, which is a very
with
different film.
Al Pacino and Robert De Niro.
Yep, very different, both quality pictures.
Yeah.
But if you were at Blockbuster and you got Heat instead of The Heat, you have a very different night.
Yeah, I hope you.
But either way, a good night in my opinion.
A great night. You know, it doesn't matter if it's Sam or Sam's sister. Bucky's having a good time. In this situation, that's with the films. We're also doing 2017's The Hitman's Bodyguard. The pandemic has my years messed up. I'm like, is it 2018, 2019? When it's a construct now. Two movies in the 2010s. Our first female buddy cop movie and a very by the numbers Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson movie. Both did very well at the box office. We are getting a sequel to The Hitman's Bodyguard. Apparently, we are not getting a sequel to The Heat because both Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock were like, we're good.
We're good. We're superstars. We don't need to be doing this again. But it made a ton of money.
200 million worldwide off of like next to nothing to make.
Like a $40 million budget, which is literally just paying for the two of them. That's what that cost is. Yeah.
I feel like The Heat was like one of the first movies too where the comedy was very much just like, let them do some improv, let the camera run, let them do their bits,
like they're having fun, let them just go. And a lot of Melissa's films are like that, where like, let's just cut the camera on, don't turn it off, we won't call cut, and we'll figure out the film as it goes along. And that's and especially if you allow her, she serves better when it's an R-rated version of that, because she can like she's a blue collar, so like let her just go, and it's great when she gets to play in that realm.
I love The Heat so much. I didn't watch it for this week because I just watched it like a month ago. It's just, as somebody who loves buddy movies, this is the only really one with women. And I want to see that in my eyeballs more as a woman who likes this genre. Any action movie with women, there are action movies with women, but this is like, this specific subgenre.
Yeah, so you don't really get the buddy aspect.
Yeah, like we've got Charlie's Angels and now we have Birds of Prey. I watched a bunch of women-led action movies on my birthday as like my birthday treat, but this is definitely a little different than those movies.
Yeah, there's an edge to this, and you don't really get to see women. Like, I think we've gotten to a point where we now accept women in the action, just the action realm, like between all the underworld films and like,
I mean, that goes as far back as Alien and Terminator.
Yeah, like, I think we've got that, but to start accepting them and doing some of the other things is where it has not always been the cleanest. Ocean's 8 is one of them,
which I do love. If a woman had directed it, it would have been the perfect movie, but I think that because a man directed it, there were some things that fell flat, but I still really enjoy it. I
dig most of Ocean's 8, but and The Heat is another one of those where I was like, but this one the audience turned out and drove for it, and I'm not entirely sure why this was the one that was like, all right, we're going to sign up for this.
Well, I mean, I think Jamie said it. It's the Black Panther for the buddy cop female movie. You give something that isn't there when we talk about elevating or challenging a genre, the same way we now have a Disney Plus Marvel show dealing with systemic racism and then problems in our own history and dealing with these heavy themes and questions that I never thought Marvel would ask. The Heat does something similar, and we give an audience, in this case, the female audience, a giant movie going audience, the female audience. That sounds so clinical. We gave women a buddy cop.
Try not to say the word female because it's
like
trans exclusionary and it's weird because you're just talking about like reproductive parts. Try to say women.
Yeah,
it doesn't roll off the tongue as well, but it's good to practice.
It's like you first said I was like, oh, am I in a doctor's office?
Yeah.
But we gotta, like Jamie said, we've never had one of these before, so of course we all went. It's also Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy.
I mean, come on, what a duo!
I would say, I believe we're coming post Bridesmaid for Melissa, and we're coming. I mean, Sandy's been like The Proposal, Miss Congeniality. Like she's always been sort of in this wheelhouse. And I think it also plays into the fact that when we see these trailers, it's super R-rated, and most of the stuff up to that point Sandy had been in have been like PG or PG, more family friendly. Like, oh, Melissa's taking Sandy into her world. Like, this is gonna
Yeah.
be fun. I want to see what's happening here.
I'm realizing mid-conversation that Miss Congeniality 2, in a way, does have those vibes because it's her and Regina King.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but I only saw that once in theaters, and if I recall, it's not very good.
Yeah, it's not good.
But they tried, and
Yeah.
we love Regina King. So
Yes.
Yeah, it's I mean, the Heat is great. I had never seen it until we did it for this. I missed it
Oh,
in
really?
theaters. Oh yeah, and I just the whole time was like, this is my kind of comedy. Like
it's
now
funny.
we're just doing the dumb bits.
Yeah, I mean, like you just like her interaction with the guy she keeps finding with the drug, like with the car and the drug dealer. I'm like, oh, this is fun. I enjoy all of this. And to basically, you're watching a cop procedural, but just like when R-rated Melissa just go. Like it's literally like Melissa Go is what this script says.
When I interviewed Tony Hale, he commented on my DVDs, and I was like, "You're in some of these," and he was like, "Oh no, that's it. No, that probably bad ones." I was like, "No, I just watched The Heat recently," and he was like, "Okay, yeah, that's pretty good." It's just enjoyable. It's funny. I mean, it makes me laugh. One of my best friends, Becca, and I, we've wanted to do that Halloween costume. Be the two of them.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that like it's another example where I go, okay, we did the buddy cop movie. Why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we making more of these? Give me more women action movies.
That's what's weird about this one. And it's happened with Black Panther. Like Black Panther makes so much money. Like, cool, let's make all these let's give black films and do all of that. I don't know why, and I don't know if they're just like, oh, it's only star power, but I don't know why this movie makes as much money as it does, and we just don't have just a litany of female-led action comedies.
Wild. Like one of the saddest things to me is that the new Charlie's Angels flopped because it's so good. It's real. I mean, it's not as good as the 2000 version. Nothing ever will be. Or even the original. Well, I love the original show too, but the new one is really enjoyable, and it did so poorly at the box office. And I don't know if that's an IP thing where it's like the name Charlie's Angels, people are over that. But it's in the same thing with Terminator Dark Fate, a great action movie starring
really
women.
I mean,
really Dark Fate is the best Terminator movie since Terminator 2.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that it also, like, it's not that these movies got bad reviews, they just didn't make any money. And it makes me sad because it makes it seem like people don't want to watch women kick ass. But I actually didn't know The Heat made a lot of money until you said it. So that gives me hope, but also maybe it's the comedy thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Each of those films you named, I saw in the theater, because I definitely love the Terminator. I was like, oh, this is great. And it also, it's a female-led and a person of color is the other second lead in that. Like, so you have Hispanic women. So it's like, oh, and I don't know if that turned folks off because that would make sense in America. And Charlie's Angels, I didn't love it, but there are some aspects of it that I really love. Somehow, because I'm not a big Kristen Stewart fan, in that movie, she was freaking phenomenal. I was like, she is great.
I am a huge Kristen Stewart fan, but I never in a million years would have guessed that she could be funny like that. I truly was shocked at how funny she is in that movie.
I am constantly impressed by her range. Every movie she does, I'm like, she can just do everything, can't she?
Yeah. I can't wait for her Princess Diana. I cannot
It's going to
wait.
be great.
Yeah.
But I think that brings us to 2017, where we made The Hitman's Bodyguard, a movie that I thought was just fine.
I really like it. I think it's too long, which is weird because it's only 2 hours.
So
but
it feels
long.
You feel it.
If they cut out like 25 minutes, I think it would be like the perfect buddy action movie. I think that their chemistry's there. I love Selma Hayek. She's so good. I'm so excited for the sequel because she's like the star of the sequel.
She's more in it. Yeah.
The sequel's called The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. And there were some good moments. I love when they're fighting in the hardware store. Or the hardware area, like that's really like fun. Like they're utilizing stuff. It's funny, but there are I don't know why it just feels too long.
There's a considerable. I mean, and this happens with a lot of first times for the buddy films, but there's a considerable amount of time where Sam and Ryan are not together yet, and you kind of just like, well, let's get here because that's when you hit the sweet spot. So let's hurry up and get here because all this stuff that's happening before this, I'm not as connected to, and it feels like a run of a mill buddy flick. And until you put the pairing together, that's when it's like there's the magic.
It's the
Look at that.
template of a buddy cop movie. I think the biggest problem this movie had for it, because it got a critical, it's at like a
It got
40%
hit
on
pretty
Rotten
hard. Yeah.
Tomatoes. And I feel like its biggest problem is that it is just a very by the numbers buddy cop movie.
Mhm.
They're both great, but
Mhm.
outside of that, it's like, yeah, just they're
The-
tints.
Concept of the hitman and the bodyguard is great because that's unique. They could that's a really interesting, cool, fun dynamic, and the fact that you find out they met before, like I like all that. It's just like the overall story, the Gary Oldman of it all. Even though Gary Oldman's great,
And I
it's just, like,
typically love Gary Oldman. I was like,
bizarre.
let's
So
let's
weird.
get to this. It's what movie is this? What you're in a very different movie than the other folks here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, but it's like you said, it feels a little too long. We could have cut some out, made it a tight 90, because it just isn't really a story that needs two
To
full
go on
hours
that
to
long.
do. But it is fun. Like I laughed quite a lot when they throw him out of the front of that car.
Yeah, I do
Uh-huh.
enjoy when he's like yapping to the guy complaining about Samuel Jackson.
I mean, he ruined motherfucker.
Right.
It's so hard to do.
Too many motherfuckers in that movie. Like the
Oh.
whole movie, I'm like, I should have drank every time they said motherfucker.
Oh,
Like
it's
I love
definitely
I love when he
definitely
says it, but too much.
I look forward to him saying like there's got to be every film he has to say it once. This
Once.
film, you're like, Jesus, God damn, you just like let him go.
And it wasn't
say
just
all the
him.
time.
Ryan said it a bunch.
Ryan was
Selma
I
said
feel
a lot.
like Ryan got to like probably them two hanging out offset was like, I'm just gonna throw in as many motherfuckers as I can.
Well, I almost felt like it had to be improv when he was
Yeah.
fighting that guy. He was like, he's
Oh,
almost ruined the word motherfucker. Do you know
Yeah.
how hard it is to ruin that word?
I did get inspired though. I decided if I ever meet Samuel Jackson, I'm gonna ask him to write motherfucker on a napkin and then get it tattooed on me.
Great.
That's
I
awesome.
think that's the way to
Yeah,
do it.
that is the way. Yeah, that's how it has to go.
Just because obviously when you think of him saying motherfucker, you don't think of this movie. There are a million
No.
other movies he says it in.
Yeah.
What's
Right.
fascinating is how we were just talking though is like how this film has gotten a sequel immediately, and then we don't really
Well,
see any female
immediately.
action. Well, immediately, but has gotten one, and more recently than any other action female led comedy. So it's just like, why did Hitman get it?
Did you look how much it made? I would assume it made a lot of money with that.
It did. I mean, it made like 107. I think it's 176. Looks like it's 176 million on
Yeah.
a 30 to 50 million dollar budget.
So it did
I mean,
about as
it's-
well as The Heat. And The Heat's in a specific place because those two leads are both like, no.
Right. But I think you could easily sort of, not easily, but pick a couple of other. I mean, Girls Trip did well. I mean, there are other female comedies that have come.
I think it's
since
getting
that point.
better, but
Yeah.
I love that you brought up Girls Trip because I literally was thinking about it yesterday. The fact that I watched Girls Trip and Melissa McCarthy's Spy with my grandma.
I love
Oh,
Spy. I love Spy.
Spy.
Is one of the greatest films.
Spy is
It's
amazing.
fantastic. Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm not kidding. The hardest I have ever seen my grandma laugh in my life are two occasions: when Melissa McCarthy vomits on the dead guy she just killed in Spy, and when I don't remember who in Girls Trip pees all over everybody.
Tiffany. No, it's not. Is it Tiffany Haddish's character? Because she's on the top. Yeah.
I don't remember who it was because
I don't
I
remember
only
it.
saw that movie once. But like somehow
Oh,
my grandma
was-
laughing at these bodily functions, I'll never get over it. She's gonna be
I was-
80 in a couple months, and
Yeah.
that's what she laughs at.
I normally don't really like toilet humor, but the peeing and Girls Trip actually had me in tears. Like
Agreed. I agree.
Yeah. So there are like Bad Moms are another group of like a couple of movies where there
That
are
got a sequel.
female-led comedies.
Mm.
Yeah, and they did get a sequel.
I just
So
watched
it-
Bad Moms for the first time, and I was a little disappointed. But I think I'll like the Christmas one, but I haven't watched it.
So it's there.
Mhm.
I just don't think it's had the huge turnaround that sort of this black explosion has versus with as Black Panther did.
But who knows? There's still time. Marvel's
Maybe.
gonna give us more, I think.
Yeah.
They better. And I still want Birds
The
of
problem
Prey.
with Marvel is that you can only do so much. Like I want some gritty, cursing, bloody,
I want,
funny
like,
nonsense.
Punisher and
Yeah.
Daredevil to be back playing in that world, and Blade not being a PG-13.
Right? So then that's kind of where we are with the buddy cop genre now. We've looked at it from the 60s all the way to now, and we've oddly seen it kind of deal with some heady issues and then kind of become pair up two people that are unexpected, let the hijinks ensue, There's a mission. Half the time, the mission doesn't matter, and go. And then you have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which positioned itself as a buddy cop situation. I know Marvel likes to do this. Everything we do is different. I feel like this and WandaVision are two of the biggest examples of that. Sometimes I feel like they miss the mark when they're like, Winter Soldier was a espionage political thriller. I was like, it was an action movie. That was an action movie.
Spider-Man is a John Hughes film. It's a Spider-Man movie.
I mean,
It's close.
yeah, that's kind of a stretch. Like you can make comparisons, but
Right.
So now here we are. It seems like where we're at with it from 2013 and 2017. I'm sure there's more recent examples, but movies haven't been released in years. It's so long. We're getting there. May 7th, I'll be vaccinated.
It's funny. Bad Boys is the one that basically the buddy film that closed down the world. Like that was the last big
That's
franchise.
right.
That was one of the last things I saw in theaters for sure.
Ours was Emma. Terrence and I saw Emma.
Yeah, we saw Emma.
Oh, Emma was pretty good.
I loved Emma.
I love Anya Taylor, yeah.
So then once the world is back, we now have a buddy cop television show, which we've also had before that I don't think either of any of those have really quite connected. But now we have a Marvel version of it. We're dealing with some heady, ripped from today's headlines themes. We're getting into it. We're not shying away from it. We're not only challenging the characters, but our audience. And then we are kind of making Bucky cop up to who he was, and not just who he was as the Winter Soldier, but who he was as James Buchanan Barnes. And I didn't think about what it would mean to give the shield to a black man. I messed up, Sam. These are great moments. And I wonder if now, what do we want to see from the buddy cop genre? How does this genre stay new and relevant? How do we avoid some of the criticisms overlaid onto Hitman's Bodyguard of like, yeah, we've done this. We've done this so many times. What is it?
I mean, well, I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier definitely hit on some stuff that we haven't seen in like the race stuff. And, you know, I'd love to see more of that. And I don't know, Hitman 2, I think I'm stoked to see what we get I'm assuming it's going to be a threesome situation.
Go on.
But I don't know. I think that it's hard to, you know, how do you make these original? I don't have an answer to that, but I'd love to see. I know what I want 100%, and I've said this a million times. I want what Old Guard kind of gave me, which is two badass men being badass motherfuckers who are also lovers. That's all I want from this genre is a couple who gets to do all the cool stuff, and the fact that they are gay, like, yeah, we get some kissing, of course, but that's not what it's about. And that's kind of like with the two guys in Old Guard. That was the first time I'd even come close to that. But it's, you know, it's an ensemble movie. It's more about Charlize. It's not about them. Like, give me their origin movie. That is my dream. And I've told you before, all I've ever wanted is to make a Tango and Cash sequel where Tango and Cash realize that they're
just get it on.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
But that is my answer.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too, is representation. So it's always typically has just been black man, white man. Most of the ones that we've talked about today, this whole series have been that, except for Bad Boys in the Heat. So it's kind of like that's
in Rush Hour.
In Rush Hour.
But that's typically the blueprint for it. So I think just like she said, just put everybody, get some type of representation, because otherwise it's the same thing all the time. But if you put a different skin where you're like, oh, let's have lesbians, let's have gay people, let's have transgender people, like let's just play in this world, because every time it's going to be different for that group, those group of people. I think we also said, just because of the way that this show handled it, I think it is, when you're doing these buddy types and there is a difference of ethnicities, or there's a difference of sexuality, like if there is a straight male and a gay male, let's get into some of those conversations that probably would not have been done in the 80s and 90s. Like
kind of kiss bang bang-ish, but there's some things that didn't age well in that movie. I love that movie, but that's the only example I can think of.
Yeah I agree. I love most of Shane Black. I just don't love Shane Black.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
But isn't that most white male filmmakers? Let's be honest.
I think that's most white men. Said the white. I can say that. No, I agree. I think, like with most things right now, and it's so weird that we live in a time where it's like, well, to be innovative, we should be inclusive. And it's like, We should just be inclusive. That shouldn't be like changing the game. Like, but yes, those are the stories we haven't seen yet. And we now, in watching so many of these back to back to back to back, I did start to get a little fatigued by the time we got to Hitman's Bodyguard and was like, yeah, I know this setup now. And if we're gonna pair up a black and a white star, challenge that the way the Falcon and the Winter Soldier did. Challenge it the way that we haven't seen. If we are gonna pair up LGBTQIA and anybody else, and let's tell these stories so that they are challenging to the audience a bit, because we know the template and we know the comedy, and usually those stories come out and they're great. And when they do, we're like, oh, I've never really looked at it this way. And it makes us challenge some of our presumptions when we just see the world through another lens. And when you do that with this genre, it is kind of the shot in the arm it needs. I don't really need to see another Rush Hour or Lethal Weapon or anything else, which is also where I then go with like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I'm like, well, then where do we go from here? Is this now the show that deals with these ideas, or should the next one deal with a different theme? Who is that villain going to be? How do we keep moving this forward? Because not everything needs to be like ripped from today's headlines, but I think what we've learned with a lot of movies, especially watching them without theaters and without groups of people around, is we start to see the shallowness. When we watch the Godzilla versus Kongs or the Mortal Kombats without the group fun, we just sort of are left being like, okay, cool. Yeah. That was fun, I guess. If I just want to have fun for an hour, then I'm here. But I don't know. I want to both relax and think, I guess. Like, I get the Fast and the Furious appeal, which is like watch the cars go fast. But those are also movies that are inclusive and have stories. And the theme is as simple as just family. But in every movie, we put that thesis to a different challenge.
Yeah.
The same way we do, frankly, in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So it is like, it is a little bit deeper than that. We are kind of getting into like what these people are and who their lives are. And when we don't do that, when I look at Hitman's Bodyguard and I go, well, this is a guy, Ryan Reynolds, who wants his company back and he wants his relationship back and he wants his life back. But I stopped feeling that halfway through the movie. That's just kind of there so that we don't just have a man running around doing something else. We're not really, what do you do when you're faced with this failure? What do you do when it turns out that this guy is responsible for your downfall, but you have to protect him? And the conflict needs to be deeper there. And I do think the easiest way to do that is to just get some diversity in there, behind the camera, in front of the camera. Give me a buddy cop movie with two guys in a relationship. Let me see how that relationship is challenged when we're also doing this kind of stuff.
Right.
Do it right now, you stupid executives.
I'm going to write it. Settle.
Jamie, get to work. So yeah, I mean, now we're done for weeks.
Oh,
I know,
so
Marvel
sad.
just left us hanging.
We're waiting for Loki. I'm sure we'll have a show for you then. We might think of a show to do in the interim. I don't know. A lot of questions. We've enjoyed doing it though. So if you've enjoyed listening, you should leave us a review. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're on the podcast, leave a review. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hollywood Already Did It. I'm at, as always, Blake. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum. Jamie is at Jamie Cinematics. We do another podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore about movies that may have aged poorly. We do also have the regular Hollywood Already Did It about reboots, remakes, and adaptations whenever the world deems a movie to be released. So soon that train will open again. And Jamie, of course, has everything at comicbook.com and her quizzes at BuzzFeed and is sometimes on the Phase Zero podcast.
We might have Malcolm Spellman this week. Keep an eye out.
Great. That would be great. And that's it, guys. Those are the buddy cop movies. We've looked at it. We've looked at sitcoms. We've looked at these movies. Who knows what we'll look at next? We will see you all at the latest in June when Loki shows up.
Later.
Bye.